This video is on drawing a straight bow. Now, it's not always as easy as it looks to draw a straight bow, especially on the cello, when we don't have a very good perspective on whether or not our bow is straight. The way we see our bow is the way the camera would see the bow, meaning the difference between a straight or a crooked bow is this difference. It's kind of hard to see when you're looking at the bow from this angle, which is how we see our bow. So there's four things we can do to help us make sure that our bow is as straight as it can be. Because if our bow is a little bit crooked, it will tend to plane up and down, and it will also not get the best sound quality that we'd like to have. So the first tool that we can use is observing these C-Bouts, or cutaways. They're here for a reason, and that reason is so that you have access to your low and high string. Without these gaps, you wouldn't be able to play these outside strings. So this is a good way to just get you thinking about what some people would call following the curvature of the bridge with the bow. It's a little confusing that we say we want our bow to be parallel to the bridge, yet the bridge itself is curved. This is kind of what's meant by that, is that on the C string you should be drawing your bow through this C-bout, and on the A string it should be going through this C-bout. A lot of times we're content to sort of approximate this, but this is actually a much better angle to get the string to really activate. Same is true on the A string. So a good way to start would be to just follow the curve of the bridge by starting from one C-bout with our frog going through this, come around this corner, and hopefully our bow will end up in the other C-bout. And that's the range of motion necessary. Now when we cross strings, we do it we follow a curve, but when we select a string to play on, we draw our bow straight on that string, that individual string. If I want to move to the next string, I follow the curve of the bridge, aiming for the C-bout in the direction that I'm going. Not all the way, because that would be for the C string, but if I need to go one string over, I want to lock into that position. When I go to the C string, we could even start at the tip on the C string, draw our bow, come around this curve to the frog on the A string, start at the frog on the A string, move towards the C string. Trickier if we do this down bow, but it needs to be learned as well. Start down bow on the C string, aiming for this C-bout, and as we cross, I'm aiming for the tip to be pointing in this gap right here. Same is true as we come back. Down bow on the C string. That should be practiced both ways, starting up bow on the C string and crossing, starting down bow on the C string, and back and forth. The second thing we want to think about when it comes to drawing a straight bow, or a technique that I've kind of observed has worked for me a little bit, again because it's difficult to tell, is looking through this gap, normally between the hair and the stick, looking at the bow and the bridge, but looking at the bridge really through this gap. Normally we play on the side of the hair, but for this we'll need to come up onto flat hair so that we can see right through this gap. I'm on the D string right now. If my bow is angled to the side of the hair, which most of the time we play on the side of the hair, I can't see the bridge. The stick is obscuring it. If I lean up onto the flat hair, I can see the bridge directly between the hair and the stick. When I look at the bridge, I can see where the string I'm playing on, the D string, meets that bridge. And on either side of that string, I can see a little quadrant, a little half circle of bridge on either side of the string. If my bow's crooked, those sections of bridge become uneven. If it's crooked this way, I see a lot of bridge over here and not much over here. If it's straight, I should see an even amount of bridge on either side of the string when I look through this little window. This works best when we play close to the bridge. I also find it's most helpful in the middle two strings where you don't have these guides. They're not as obvious. The third thing I like to think about or encourage when discussing drawing a straight bow is fighting the natural pendulum motion of the arm. If I simply extend my arm and sweep back and forth, and then put that onto the strings, my bow's going to do this. My bow becomes straight somewhere in the middle of the stroke, but for the rest of the stroke, it's following the pendulum of the arm. So I need to think about fighting that tendency both at the frog and at the tip. So if I start in the middle with a straight bow and I draw to the tip, my bow will naturally want to do this. I want to fight against that, so I'm going to reach forward, extending my arm, opening up my elbow, making sure that the frog is not coming towards me. At the tip, I want to make sure, as I move towards the frog, I want to make sure the tip doesn't start pointing behind me. I want to make sure the bow continues along its path. And I achieve this by dropping my wrist and pushing the bow out with the fingers like that. If I hold on to the bow too tightly and my hand is locked and I don't bend my arm, it's just going to come around the corner like this. So if we want to do that, just to get used to this in sort of an extreme way, at the tip I want to reach forward. At the frog, I want to drop the bow into the back of the hand and point the tip at the ground. So now I'm exaggerating what I want to do. But I'm doing so to avoid this natural tendency. So it's good to feel all these different ideas. Maybe first, go ahead and let your bow follow the curvature of your arm, the pendulum of your arm. Then try to do the opposite thing. Then just try to keep your bow straight. The last thing is adjusting either yourself, your shoulders, your arm, or the instrument to better favor especially the high string or the low string. Now, if I'm playing something that's going to be on the low strings for 16 bars, 8 bars, 10 bars, more than a few seconds, I might subtly reposition my instrument, I might subtly reposition my shoulders, so that those low strings, or C string, I have better access to that string. I'm right on top of the C string right now. If I had to play the A string from this position without moving anything, it wouldn't be very comfortable, especially at the tip. I almost can't reach at this point. Conversely, on the high strings, I'm kind of setting up my whole body and cello so that I can really have access to that A string, that I'm really right on top of it. This is a little bit extreme, but as you can see, if I had to play the C string in this position, I'd be all cramped up. I wouldn't really have room to play it. So now that can be subtly adjusted. You know, those are extreme examples of pieces where you're on one string for a long, long time. In something like this, where you're crossing from string to string, I can kind of move my body around the cello to get better angles. Depending on your tempo, depending on your style of playing, how much you like to move, you know, one piece will be more appropriate to do that kind of thing, another might not. But a little subtle change can make a lot of difference in terms of how comfortable you are. Even from this figure to this figure, I want to feel like I'm really set up over the C string. I might not have the time to change the position of my cello, but I can kind of move my body around to accommodate those lower strings. And again, how much you want to do that is up to you, but don't get stuck in one position where you just don't have access to a straight bow on the A string, for example, or that you're all jammed up on the C string here.